For over 35 years, the Celica was a household nameplate around the world as an affordable sports car. Originally front-engine rear-wheel drive, in the 80s, it switched over to a front-engine front-wheel drive situation. Scotty Kilmer made this arguably the most reliable vehicle all time. And for me growing up, it was one of the most popular vehicles as a tuner car. I'm getting like Ford Probe vibes here, but that was just a generation there in the 80s and 90s. And there was a GT4 version with all-wheel drive. That thing was a rally car freak. And, that huge wing on the back was so 90s. Even the back portion of it reminds me a little bit of the Mitsubishi Eclipse at the time. But this thing was more of an Evo fighter than it was an Eclipse fighter. And heck, we even had convertible versions. I totally forgot about that. Oh my gosh, it's making me just drool over these old Celicas. If you're in Canada, they call it the Celica. My good friend David Chow already made a video on this topic. And this is the send-off. This was the last generation of Celica from the late 90s to the mid-2000s here. And it just, yeah. It's a sad day. I remember it being a very sad day for me when I was in high school, learning that the Celica was being canceled. But 20 years plus later, we could be getting a revival of the beloved Celica. Let's pull up those scans here. Best Car Web, the most reputable source of upcoming Japanese cars, has the scoop here on the new Celica. Guys, grab your snacks and drinks, buckle in, and the Celica is on its way. First thing we're going to do is dig into these images. And the first thing that they say in this article is that even though the Celica is certainly coming, right, we haven't heard from the horse's mouth, but Best Car is pretty reliable with the information. So I'm going to bet on it. The Celica is coming back. It's been re-trademarked just a few years ago. I remember when I was working for Lexus, hearing remarks that the Celica was coming back. That was like back in 2019, something like that. And so the Celica has had the green light for a while, but even though it's been in production, or should I say in development for a while, no mock-up or design of the vehicle is or has been spied by anyone outside of the company. So what we have here is not anywhere close to what the final design is going to be. And that's okay with me. The front end, when I first saw it, I'm like, wait, is this just a GR Camry? It's essentially the same Camry lights. It's the exact same front end of the Camry. Not the bumper, not the bottom part of the bumper, but it's very Camry-esque. And then it turns into a coupe. So could you say, is this like a Camry? Is the Solara coming back in some ways? I think this could be bigger in some ways. We don't have dimensions or anything, but I think it could be bigger in some ways than the old Celica. And everything gets bigger over time, but maybe it's kind of a spiritual successor to the Solara without the convertible as well. All right, so keep that in mind, especially with the front end that we're seeing here. But again, keep that in mind. Nothing's official here with design. From the side, are you getting Celica vibes or are you getting more Solara vibes? Let me know down below. It's cool to see a new coupe come into the lineup. And then this is them talking about the future GR lineup. It's been quiet on the Supra front. It's been quiet on the GR86 front. We have had rumors about next generations of those vehicles, but no one seems to have concrete information on them. But this could be the future lineup for Gazoo Racing. Retire the GR86. I'm not saying they're going to, but they could. They could retire the Supra, bring in an MR2, a mid-engine rear-wheel drive sports car, bring in the Starlet for Japan, a tiny four-wheel drive pocket rally freak show. I mean, this thing is just cute to the max, which is straight up Japan. And then the SFR should be coming as a Miata fighter. And it looks like in the newer images, maybe they took out the rear seats here so it could be more of a direct Miata fighter. And no, it's not going to have a drop top, the SFR. But we're going to talk about what Japan is saying, and then we're going to hypothesize on the powertrain, because we do have some information on the powertrain, but not full specs yet. So what we're going to do is hop on over to the English translations, which I have up. I just need to start reading them, and let's get into it. Toyota's big name model is making a comeback. All right. Well, the Supra was probably the previous big name model that made a comeback, but this would be all Toyota here. There'd be no BMW intervention. The plans are still in progress. No prototypes have been revealed. They're so excited to share this because now it seems like all the previous models of past glory are being revived. Like I said, we already had the A6. We already had the Supra. And it's nice to have the sprinkling of the GR Yaris and GR Corolla as well. Watch my review on the GR Corolla. I'm probably just playing it as B-roll right now anyways. But among these, the MR2, Starlet, and SFR have already been featured in the previous scoops from Best Car Magazine. And they're saying those used inline 3-cylinder turbo engines, just like the GR Yaris and GR Corolla. They have a 1.6 liter in the MR2. But the Starlet and SFR are going to be using a smaller version of that, a 1.3 liter engine, probably just a slightly smaller bore would be my guess. So a 1.3 liter inline 3-cylinder turbo, but those are for much smaller models. There's no way that this would have it. So then your mind starts wondering, well, 300 horsepower in a Celica sounds good to me, but no. That's not what's going on here. That would be the logical situation. But they're saying that they have sources that have confirmed a 4-cylinder turbo instead of a 3-cylinder engine. And just like David mentioned yesterday in his Celica video, he got to it before I did. Nice job, David. And we spoke about it last night over the phone. It's good catching up with him. But he might be seeing the reveal of this car at the Toyota Auto Salon, the Tokyo Auto Salon, it's essentially a Toyota Auto Salon, coming in January. But as he said in his videos yesterday, there's no electrification here. There's no plug-in hybrid. There's no battery electric. It's straight gasoline and turbocharged power here. All right. So instead of a 1.6 liter 3-cylinder turbo, it is a 2 liter 4-cylinder turbo, which is going to allow it to have more power. So we're going from 300 horsepower. They keep saying 400 class here. So I don't expect it to have 400 horsepower, and I'll explain why once we get to my spreadsheet in a little bit. But they said Akio Toyota at the Tokyo Auto Salon, this had to been right after the pandemic. They showed a 4-cylinder turbocharged. You see the turbo right there, 4-cylinder turbocharged engine that they're very excited about. That engine has been in development for several years at this point. They talk about how Toyota's multi-pathway strategy has proven correct, as literally they are printing money after their Q4 fiscal year 2024 results just came in. And all the Japanese automakers are doing really, really well. But Toyota is just on another level of sheer profit volume. I think it was like $32 billion of profit after taxes last year. It's a lot of money. They're not just letting all that money get sunk into hybrids and EVs, especially EVs right now, but they are doubling down on old school performance here with this 4-cylinder engine. And they're saying that the GR, I don't know if they call it a GT4 like the old ones. They probably just called it a Celica GR4. Or just call it Celica with the GR4 all-wheel drive. But essentially, the GT4 is coming back with more power, better all-wheel drive system than what we had in the 90s. And that, my friends, is probably that's the last, as well as the MR2. Those are the last historical nameplates to get revived here before internal combustion could be killed off. But as we know with the current market, customers don't want that. Customers, at least here in the United States, want a variety of choices. And that's why cars like the new Camry could be a hybrid or battery electric variant in the future. That's why if you look at Lexus's lineup, they have turbo, they have hybrid, they have turbo hybrid, they have plug-in hybrid, and then eventually you'll see things like an RX battery electric. So it's just a matter of time. But Toyota having the most interesting lineup in the world here, bringing back old legends, resurrecting them, and then also fighting on the front of hybridization and electrification with battery electrics. It's quite interesting. Just the sheer amount of diversity within the company. And I get distracted with the FJ here. They're saying the 2.7 liter inline four cylinder that was discontinued in the Tacoma. I still don't know if this vehicle is going to come to the United States. If they don't bring it here, it's an absolute marketing failure. But time will tell. And maybe it comes as a battery electric. That is still a possibility, even though that market at this point in time has cooled off. But let's get back to the Celica here with 400 horsepower. They're saying it's a 2+2, so it'll have 2 seats in the back. It'll have the torque vectoring differentials on the front and the rear, just like the higher end GR Corollas and the GR Yaris. What's interesting here, they say a full-fledged mid-engine MR2 would sit above it. The only way that the MR2 sits above this car is if it has the 2-liter 4-cylinder 400 horsepower engine that the Celica is claiming to have here. If it has the 3-cylinder 1.6 at 300 horsepower, how can it sit above the Celica? I know it's mid-engine and that's badass, but it can't sit above it if it has a smaller engine, in my opinion. Maybe since it's such a novelty or a specialty model being mid-engine, they can charge more for it, but I just find that really hard to believe. Now, like David mentioned in his video, he's saying that the Celica here is aiming to be a more luxurious coupe instead of a pure sport coupe. Now, what do I think about that? Well, it looking like a Camry, and maybe it's Camry-like on the inside. I can see that because the new Camry is so good and luxurious and refined that it feels it's a better car than the new Lexus ES, unless you want the V6, and I understand that. But if you're looking at hybrids, the new Camry is better than the current Lexus ES at a far less of a price point. Materials aren't quite as nice. Build quality maybe not quite as good as a Lexus, but after driving it, the thing is incredible. And so if they go that route, calling the Celica more luxurious, if it has some similarities with the Camry, I understand that. Now, you also have a new coupe coming out for Lexus that is going to replace the LC and RC. Could this be the Toyota badged version of that new coupe? Maybe the new SC? And the answer is I highly doubt it. I think Lexus wants to keep that rear-wheel drive biased, and keep V6 engine in it, even if it's a hybrid. Even though we would have two similarly sized coupes coming out from Toyota and Lexus, I don't think they would share anything. Now, there are also reports maybe a year or so ago, that the Celica would be coming out with a Mazda, but how this is coming out here, it doesn't look like there's any co-development with Mazda unless Mazda just has a rebadged model. I just don't see it happening. I think there's a greater chance if Mazda was to be involved for them to share with that Lexus platform, but Lexus has never shared anything other than powertrains with its own Toyota and platforms with its own Toyota brethren. Do we know when this vehicle's coming out? They guess. They say 2027. So, I mean, if it's coming out, it's got to be by 2030. I think this is, right here they have some estimations with MR2, maybe 26, Starlet 26, 27, SFR around that same time frame, the Miata Fighter, and then the Celica in 2027. So what a lineup coming from Toyota here, reviving all the incredible old school nameplates while also adding a Miata Fighter. That's freaking incredible. Now, I wanted to get into this powertrain, and forgive me, it's pretty rough. I did this on my phone last night. Let me splash some color in there for you guys. The SFR with this little, and this could be the Starlet as well. I can put Starlet, but we're not going to get the cute little pocket rocket Starlet hatchback thing. They're saying 150 horsepower and over 180 pound-feet of torque, if I remember right. It'll be as light as a Miata. It's going to be as small as a Miata without the drop top, which takes a lot of the specialty out of the situation. So I'd probably still pick a Miata over this. You're going to have rear-wheel drive. You'll have a 6-speed manual. It might be 6-speed manual only on these models. 0 to 60, probably around 6 seconds, maybe a little bit faster. If the Miata can do it in 5.7, best case scenario, then maybe. So 30K plus here for this tiny little coupe, which I don't know. I'm really excited for it. I don't know if it would come to America, the SFR, but gotta keep the dream alive. The GR Corolla, we know this, and we can say this could also be the MR2, but I really want this MR2 to have this 2-liter turbo 4. Now, if this 2-liter turbo 4 is in the Celica and not in these other GR products, is that it? No, Toyota will use it in the Lexus lineup more than likely. There's no way that they just use it for one model. That's a complete waste of research and development. And the last time we saw a 2-liter turbo 4 from Toyota was actually in the NX with the 8AR engine, which had 235 horsepower, somewhere around there, if I remember right. But that got replaced with the 2.4 turbo, which has 275 horsepower. So we got a 40 horsepower bump, something like that, and a lot more torque. But a high performance turbo 4 would be amazing. So here are my estimations based off the power to liter ratio that we have on the GR Corolla. We could see up to 375 horsepower and 341 pound-feet of torque, even though the article says 400 horsepower class. 0 to 60 here, 5 seconds. Now, they don't mention anything about transmission that I saw in the article. Would it have a 6-speed manual? I sure as hell hope so. Would it have the new 8-speed DAT or direct automatic transmission? Of course, almost guaranteed. So, of course, the manual would be a hair slower than the automatic here. And there's a possibility maybe it's automatic only, even though that would crush the enthusiast hearts out there. So I think they offer both here, whereas the GR Corolla is only, at least for now, only manual. So, I mean, if you look at the GR86 as manual and automatic, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see both of those options here on the SFR and the Celica, where the Starlet's probably 6-speed manual only for Japan. But yeah, like this tiny 1.3 liter here could easily be tuned for well over 200 horsepower if we look at the power to horsepower, the horsepower to liter ratio that we have on the GR Corolla. It could easily go above that, at least if they wanted to tune it that way for our market. And then game on Miata at that point. That would be pretty exciting. But these numbers right here, and I just realized my camera went out, so I apologize for that. I'm going to end it there. The new Celica is going to be fantastic. We can't wait for it to come out. It could be revealed by January. That's when the Tokyo Auto Salon is. And man, the new lineup from Toyota Gazoo Racing is going to kick serious ass, guys. From a luxury Camry coupe Celica thing, I still don't know what to think about it in terms of size. We don't have dimensions on it, but it's going to have like 400 horsepower all-wheel drive. The thing's going to be a missile. We have this low-slung MR2. We have the Starlet for Japan. As much as I want it, we're not going to get it. And then you have this Miata fighter. So Toyota is fighting on multiple fronts here of sports cars. And what's the future of the GR86 and the Supra? I don't know at this point. But I'll see you guys down below, because even if the Supra and the GR86 go away, those are collaborations, remember, with BMW for the Supra and Subaru for the BRZ and GR86. These are all straight up Toyota's home cooking, which I think most of us would prefer. But the Supra is still fantastic. The GR86, I know a lot of people have a soft spot for it, and it is good for what it is, a basic, affordable sports car. It's just never done it for me. I would take a Miata over the GR86 every single time, but the Supra is fast as hell, and I would take it over a car that I'm driving this week, which is the Dark Horse Mustang, and save about 10 grand. Or I could put 10 grand of mods on them on the Supra, and that thing's already faster than that Mustang. So anyways, I'm going to end it there. Thank you guys for watching. Long live the Celica.